Well, COVID-19 has fast-tracked the move online. This is especially evident in the education sector. While online learning has many advantages, it has also highlighted the challenges and the inequalities which students from rural and poor areas face. Let's unpack this further, and I'm joined by the Director for Center for Postgraduate Studies at Rhodes University, Professor Sioux McKenna. Well, we speak to her from Makhanda out in the Eastern Cape. Professor, a very good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Let's start maybe with you giving us a picture of what online learning has been like in the past 18 months for universities and tertiary education.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I think it's been very hectic for a lot of people. Students with very little data, often having to have classes at midnight, lecturers needing to teach at midnight, students without data, and even in cases where universities really worked around the clock and worked together to get students both the hardware and the data, were at a loss in cases where there was no signal. So particularly our students in more rural areas really have been left behind. I think we can congratulate our universities at how quickly they pivoted online and how well they negotiated with the big service providers like MTN and Vodacom for data. But nonetheless, I think it's very clear that this has just exacerbated the divides between our middle-class students who can always make a plan, and I'm not saying it's been easy for them either, but they've got all sorts of means, networks and financial means of making a plan, and our rural and poor students, I think, have really, really lost so much in the last 2 years.
Has the curricula been followed, the one that is structured, or are university academics working on an emergency kind of situation still? Are they able to go into the true planned curricula which was established?
I think it's varied greatly by university, because our university sector is also very uneven in terms of its resources, and it's also varied greatly in terms of programs. So in some cases, yes, the entire syllabus was covered. In a few cases, some small cuts have been made, and in other cases, I think some fairly significant, tough educational choices had to be made, and cuts had to happen. But I think it's important to note that even where the entire syllabus was covered, so to speak, it was covered in terms of getting through the knowledge rather than providing the deep, rich educational experiences that we'd like to offer all of our students. Because, of course, to be frank, all the knowledge that our students come to university to get is pretty much available online. Wikipedia, YouTube, all sorts of educational resources. So it's not access to knowledge that they are enrolled at a contact university for. It's access to an education. And I think we've done the best we could. I think we learned a lot of lessons from last year, and we are doing better this year. But I think that there are certain aspects to a higher education that require the ongoing face-to-face interaction between students and lecturers, the extracurricular opportunities, all the myriad ways in which a university education should be so much more than getting through the knowledge of a syllabus. And I think that has been extremely difficult.
Professor McKenna, how has this affected not only the teachers, academics, but also the student emotionally? The fact that there is that lack of one-on-one, and also being able to gather as peers for discussions and groups and, those kind of, aspects of the learning.
Absolutely. wealth of research coming out now about this, about around the world, about the sort of mental well-being implications. For some of our students, it's about suddenly having to take on all sorts of care, giving responsibilities that they wouldn't have had if they were in residence. It's about being in homes that are not conducive to easy study, but it's also all the anxiety about your family has invested so much into this higher education and you're not sure that you can complete it. I know that in my job, I have done more of what we call pastoral care in the last 2 years than I've done, I'd say, in the previous 15. I think students and colleagues are I'm sure it's true of any citizen, actually. I think people are stretched, and university years can be very fraught and very emotional and very challenging. And to have to do it in these circumstances, I think it's perhaps not surprising that we really are seeing students suffering from panic attacks and breakdowns and simply dropping out. And I think universities are having to work really hard to stay connected to students in this context.
Professor McKenna, we have to leave it there, but would you say that this can be or cannot be a permanent situation, this online working?
Absolutely, it cannot be permanent. I think we will always benefit from the lessons we've learned, and I'd like to see more technology used in our education in the future. But no, this entirely online, I don't think it is a socially just possibility.